Excellent. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm glad that I'm able to be here to join you. And my background, just so you know, I'm Managing Director for Career Learning and Experience at the Center for Career Services. And we started to look at redeveloping career services at GW. I say we, but the university did about 4 to 5 years ago. Um, And from that process, we've really expanded that team. We collaborate very closely with a number of other career offices to offer a broad range of programs and services. For your particular department, our office is a primary office, so that's what I want to talk about today, all the different services and many of the shared resources that are available to you so that you're aware of them. And I also want to spend time in just answering some of your questions. To kind of look at a number of the different resources and kind of dig down a little bit what your interests are. So I do have a question. I will start with that. So how many PhDs, students we have here? Yeah, of course. Postdoc, any postdocs? So it's mostly PhDs at this point. Okay, good. So our tagline is behind every success story, there's a plan, meaning our underlying desire for all students is for you to be successful in your career, successful right after school in that first career, but well beyond that. But part of that is a plan that is very individualized. We look at the student's background, we want to understand that background, understand where you want to get, and see how we can support and move you towards that. So within that, I believe, and I've worked at the graduate level, master's level with PhDs as well, and at the undergraduate level, that these three tenets are, I think, very common across all of those. And I think across your entire kind of trajectory of your career and for your life, which is, I think, important. Every time you're thinking about things later on, that midlife crisis people have even around their careers often go and start with knowing yourself and understanding something isn't right, where I want to go, where do I want to connect. Everyone's doing that, and what you're really trying to say is, I'm not passionate about my work anymore. I hope many of you are here in your PhD, you're passionate about your work, so you've often found that passion, but it's also about communicating that passion and what drives you towards others as a starting point. And sometimes you'll get your degree area, but then it's also being able to explain that passion and how it fits into a broader range of job roles. Because sometimes a PhD or even a PhD undergrad is more common. They have this broad range of areas that they can go and work in, and they've really got to figure out how they communicate, how a history degree might make them a good consultant. You do want to take the same approach. You're really trying to know yourself and how it fits into these different areas of, whether it's a research job, whether it's academic, or whether it's a true kind of working in a hospital, and how you might communicate that differently. We also want to know how to help you know how to connect with employers, and that is bringing that job. You have an vision of what you want to have in your future job, I hope, and we want to create clarity around that with your know yourself. But then how do you connect with the employers? And some of that is just how you're presenting yourself in applications, presenting yourself in networking, and doing outreach. And some of it is us making sure the employers are coming to this campus, where things like the programs you're offering today where alumni are coming to speak is something we want to collaborate with, because you'll start to see how you connect with very particular employers by actually going out and talking to employers long before you ever apply for jobs. The last is, and this is know how to be professional. A lot of people look at that, and I think it is very different when it comes to undergraduates. But even for undergraduates at GW, it's not just about how you dress and how to be professional in the workplace. I know many of you might already understand that. We do think longer term, no matter what in your trajectory in life and where you're at in your career, you want to think, okay, I'm doing this now. In 5 to 10 years, where does my professional path take me? And when it comes to our programming and coaching, we're helping to try to talk through with students and with our students at all different levels to kind of look at where that trajectory is going to take you. So that's just kind of our theory. So how do we make that, and how do we make that a plan, your image and your goal reality around that plan? Is we have 11 career coaches, and we have 2 different types. And I think we do have assessment coaches that specialize in several different assessments, including the Strengths Quest. Those are probably more aligned with people figuring out exactly what they want to do with their degree. Probably not as right. We also have MBTI, which I find at the master's and the higher level is a very effective assessment to do. We offer that through workshops. We even do specialized workshops where we'll bring students together, run through the assessment. What that does is helps understand your strengths and your weaknesses and the dynamics of how you work with others, how you communicate, how you understand, how you problem solve. So it's a very good assessment you might want to consider to understand, again, where you sit within a team of professionals. Rarely is your job going to be independent. You're always going to be working with teams and others, and so I'd recommend that within the assessment. I'm going to talk in more detail about the industry specializations. We do have over 200 appointments availability each week. They book up 2 to 3 weeks out because we're very busy. We serve a very large population, but know that there's always usually availability with good planning. It's the just-in-time ones. We'll always make time, our coaches. I know my team will often do that, say you have some immediate need. But I encourage you to get engaged with the coaches fairly early if you want that sort of support. So we have programs and employer events. We have over 600 plus career programs a year. Some of those are co-sponsored with other organizations, with other offices. This is across the campus because we actually see all the different things that are taking place. A lot of those, over 50%, are special requests. And I note that if you're part of a student organization or whether that's in the classroom, we often do specialized programs where we'll come and do a program for a student organization for like this. This would be considered a special request. We do have over 800 employers via on-site, meaning they're coming to GW to do presentations, there are career fairs, they're in panels. We also do a couple treks. I know that actually the Compass, any of you involved with Compass? And they're doing a trek, and we help with resources and guidance with those as well. And ideally, we can collaborate on those as well. Those treks are getting students into the employer so you can meet and see the employers, meet with alumni. On-site visits. So I was just mentioning that student organizations for us are a key component of bringing students together from a number of different colleges and different degree programs, colleges, because as you'll see, how we actually structure ourselves is much more around industries and the employers that want to hire within those industries than we are to say, oh, we want to just work with this school. And that is actually part of the restructuring and rethinking of career services at GW is all the siloed areas of help are not productive when it comes to employers. Deloitte might want to hire someone that is a technical specialist in a particular area you're studying. They don't hire just business students or consulting and finance, right? So part of that is to work with these student organizations to understand what your needs are, drive our programming, and actually bring students together from multiple different professional tracks around some of those different industry areas. So over 50% of our programs are co-sponsored with student organizations, with different groups. We're actually increasing that this year. We cut programs, and we just did a call for programs. I sent something to the GW Compass group to say, what programs do you want? So I wanted to highlight that because we're really trying to do a lot of work to understand what your needs are through those organizations. And I say that our coaches provide a lot of the individual service. The best way you can learn and work is coming to events like this and working together. Having panels is a lot more efficient on an industry area than doing 10 informational interviews, which we encourage, but is very helpful. So I do want to note, I just wanted to put this up here as one of our standard slides, is we want to note that there are pretty clearly defined professional competencies you do want to be thinking about, both in your classroom work, the skills that you're developing within student organizations. Most times, especially at the PhD level, we have a concept called a T-shaped individual. And that is, you have these really depth of knowledge in a particular area, but employers actually hire mostly on these. For very technical, critical roles, that depth, you need to have depth in a particular area to get hired. But then these are all the other things that are going to make you stand out amongst all the other candidates to say, we need someone that can work in a team and collaborate. So actually, we have lots of information on our website. this is where that MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Assessment we use, is often good of helping understand some of these components. So if there's something about professional development and kind of your own to learn about, are these critical areas that employers are looking for. Okay, so these are our industry coaches, and I think the most obviously, they cover kind of broader bucket areas. And I think probably the overlap areas is going to be Nicole Mintz, who works in the health sciences, nursing medicine, public health, and probably our STEM coach, Dr. Sonia Merrill. If you're involved in the student organizations that align with those industry areas, that's going to be often your point of contact. We have industry appointments, so when you would go on to, I'll show you in Handshake later, you can go on there and do industry appointment. It's based in these areas, and that's just going to direct you to the appropriate person to meet with. But these are also the coaches that align with those student organizations, different groups, to set up programming, talk about resources. Okay. The other thing I wanted to note, and this is very broad, this is kind of a standardized slide in the sense that we have a lot of alumni relationships, and NIH is up there because that's definitely a place that hires a lot of students at the undergraduate, graduate, PhD level from GW. But we have a broad range of employers, and I do want to encourage you to think broadly about it, because little would you think that there are people probably at the CIA doing work that you want to do or working in research and projects that are pretty important. There's people in the private sector, like I said, Deloitte, they might have, or technical consulting firms. So know that there's lots of employers, and it's not always immediately intuitive, like, oh, that's exactly, we have a lot, hopefully, that exactly where you want to work. But often some of the job roles are very broad, and that's one of our roles, is to help develop those contacts. So there's the aspect of who we do try to work with and do an outreach. It was kind of an overview. But what are the outcomes? Are any of you familiar with a life after GW graduate? Okay, so this is, and I'm going to go to this afterwards. If we want, we can take a look at it and search around. This is something where you can search on the school down to the actual academic programs, and it's going to show you where people ended up working. It's going to show you some of the salaries. It's going to show actually an overall word cloud of a number of the different employers that are in that.
PhD outcomes in that?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll find out.
But with that, once you start getting in your majors, it's going to start to overlap that they're probably hiring at both levels. But this is only graduate and beyond level. It doesn't include undergraduates. I think that is important, so you're able to pull that out. We have one of these for undergraduates, and just to know that there's contacts and they're pulling applicants from GW can be another place to look, but I'd want to look at that. Well, but I'll check with Kim to make sure that PhDs are included. I believe they are. The data sets, they aren't as good. This is several years of data, usually 3 to 4 years, I think, is what it'll be this next year. So it kind of rounds it out. So it should have a pretty good sampling. We will want to look at the response rates, and I encourage you to get graduates when you're graduating to fill this out, because that's the best thing, is then we really get a better picture of where people are going. At the undergraduate level, we have about 90%. Of the graduate level, it's much lower.
So we posted the IBS career outcomes for the last 15 years on the IBS website.
So you got it.
Your cohort. So we've got similar information up there.
Yeah, and that's where you want to do that with your specific program. This will help you to start looking across schools, across where you think, okay, these also, there might be an overlap, really start to pull. Because what you want to do is build out that employer list, and then you get into that next step of building relationships in those employer lists. We're developing programs so you can learn about them, and then ideally you're, when I say building a relationship with, you're meeting people in the places you want to work well before you're ever applying, and trying to develop relationships that they become advocates to get you hired. Sometimes not just at that employer, but other employers like them. Because if you find someone that's really good and wants to support you in your alumni network, they're not just trying to get you a job at their particular place. They're often trying to say, you're really smart, you're really good, I'd love to see you working in my field as a professional. That's why actually going to events like this are so key. It should be a potential mix of people from different backgrounds that you're starting to build relationships with at GW and just within your professional field. How many of you are involved in some type of professional organization as well? External to GW?
They are and they don't know it.
Oh.
They are and they don't know it?
Like the ACS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I figured so. At the level. definitely do that. Expand those, think broadly about those associations, or just getting to events that they might have, especially networking or other educational events that they might have. It's a great way to build your network, especially as you become much, much more of an expert. You might have to present, you do all that side of it, but don't forget about the relationship building. So, key resources. How many of you have been on Handshake? Looked at it? Yeah. Finding things? What's your initial feedback on Handshake? What do you
It's annoying.
It's annoying?
Yeah, I thought the interface was off. I did it during undergrad, so my last update on this was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I hated how it made you refill out your resume or CV, and it just didn't have an OCR for your standard PDF. I didn't like some of the connections I got, like people sending me emails were completely irrelevant based on my curated list. So yeah, that's my.
Your old institution. Okay.
Date too, so
Okay. Yeah, they made lots of changes in the system. We just changed it this last year. Don't hold back in your feedback. Which I'm the one managing this, so really the feedback matters to me. And the company. Actually, it's a broader platform. It's interesting because what they do is the employers join it, and then they join schools and recruit broadly across different schools. It's not like they just go to GW. They actually on that side. And then it's for us. On us, it's to help find what those matches are and providing feedback of what's working best for students. They've refined it a bit. They are better at it. The employer side is better at it, so I'd give it a try. What you'll find in there, we do have some career guides. They might be a little bit more general, but if we have more specific ones to your majors and we find resources, we can help share it within that. That's where you'd sign up for coaching appointments. That's the one-on-one appointments with the industry coaches. Or the assessments. That's where you'll find events and then jobs and internships. I am very curious, and we're sensitive to jobs that are seeming to match your background and what you want, because it just takes time for us to build sometimes those relationships if we haven't. So be patient, but that's where if you're not finding things in there, to feed things back to us about what employers are needed. Hopefully we have some on there. We also look at these outcomes. We get the list of employers who are out there trying to continue to build those relationships. Candidate Careers probably isn't more applicable to you. We do have Interview Stream, and that is an online interviewing tool where you can set up actually quite specialized questions, like how do you work in a team? May not get as technical as you might have, but if it's building out those general stories about your skill sets, it is painful but a good way to actually record yourself answering questions and get immediate feedback for yourself to see how you do. You can also send it to folks. Actually, our coaches, if you would record one, you could send it to them and actually have a meeting to talk through how you answered a number of questions. They'll do mock interviews. You can sign up for mock interviews, but it's a great initial way to do it. Any of you familiar with lynda.com? Yes? Yeah, and I, as a student, take full advantage of that. If you can, just at least get on and understand what it is and take a look at it. It has lots of opportunities, the things if you're not getting in the classroom on the technical side, you can build out. For example, I'm taking Tableau, data visualization, and telling story with data. I never had that in my graduate work, but I continue to see that is a growing demand, and it's actually becoming much more of a generalized skill across many different industries. So I'm thinking, because staff have access as well, I think strategically about potentially using that to say, wow, if I just had a general understanding of this, because I supervise our data analysts, I don't do a lot of builds myself in Tableau, but being able to say, hey, I understand visualization, I understand how it's going to work and what I need to do. So that's just an example, and I'll send this out so you'll have the link to lynda.com. We also have a number of ways that you can gain funding if you hopefully this isn't as common, if you did have internships and needed unpaid internships. We have a Knowledge and Action Career Internship Fund, for short, called CASIF, and that is to help fund unpaid internships. It is open to all students at all different levels. And I'll put a link to that. It's on our homepage. There's very specific application periods. And again, it's only unpaid. We also have CASIF travel grants for those that might be doing an unpaid internship and can't afford the funding to travel. And there are also some Shankman professional development grants. Those are current. I'm hoping that we continue that next year. Shankman was a very generous donor to develop career services, and this is one of those funds. I just put that caveat on there that this is one of those funds that's been very successful for going to conferences, getting some additional funding around professional development for individuals. But I'm hoping that funding continues over the years. Okay. Handshake, the only things, I'm not going to go into it right now. I can answer specific questions, but I often find getting on a platform and going around can be confusing. I might do that at the end for individuals if you want. Use single sign-on. One of the big frustrations is that we have single sign-on, so make sure you use that when you log on. You should not have to put in an email address, just use a single sign-on button. It'll look like that on the bottom right. Do complete your profiles. You mentioned you do a profile that highlights industries that you're interested in, and then it should start that it has an algorithm that's trying to look for information that people like you are looking at and resources they're using and try to push that information. There is a side on you for you to be able to go in and find the things you want and to set up alerts. For example, if you went in and favorited NIH, every time NIH posted a job, you will get an email. It's one of my favorite features. If you have key employers, now those won't always be appropriate at your level, but at least you know they're pushing in the number of jobs. The other thing is you can set up a job search that you do want at a level and set up a job search alert. I find those are very common ones that can be good, that you don't have to be going in all the time, but you'll be reminded by maybe a weekly email that pulls some jobs that are very specific for you. They have an app. Not as many students are adapting that, so I often encourage, hopefully they're building that out a little bit more. But we have lots of events. It's where you schedule appointments, find resources, jobs, kind of reiterating that. Okay, pause there. Questions. Again, I don't want to go into I can log into the system in a bit, but I want to make sure I cover all those. So the other thing I want to mention is that we are working on developing and understanding all the alumni that are out there specific to your program, and I think very thankful, Dr. Hill, to be able to help you pull those resources together to know. But there are many other alumni out there that are willing to help. There are LinkedIn groups, and they do have a health-specific area, so I'd encourage getting involved in that because you, again, want to broaden your network to your general industry area. So I encourage you to go there, look for the Alumni Association, and they have lots of industry-specific events that you can get involved in. And as the alumni events are open to students, you know, and especially at a professional level, those are the types of events actually you do want to get to. So this next year, we are expanding what's called GW Career Connect. It's an online mentoring platform. These are specifically out of this large population of alumni that want to help students, both graduate and undergraduate, and that's informational interviews, mock interviews, just industry appointments, shadowing, which may not be as needed. But we're building out that network and opening it up. We did a pilot just this last year, and we're expanding that network to graduate students this next year. One of the aspects with that we need to build capacity of potential mentors. And so when we're inviting graduate students, we hope you might have an interest in helping out undergraduates if you're interested in doing that. There's settings. But part of the way to build this is to get you in there and potentially have some undergraduates, if you're interested in talking to them about what you do, to be able to have that as a resource for undergraduates. So if you do join, I very much thank you ahead of time. The nice thing with this system on the alumni side and the mentor side, you can say, I don't want to be contacted by anyone, or you can say, you know, one person a month can contact me. So it is new. We're still working with it. We are designing with this, again, similar to here where they have industry communities, developing industry level communities. You can search on degree, background, majors, any of the majors at GW as well. So that's a broader network. Again, that is one area that non-alumni can also join, so that's an easier network to engage in for postdocs because it's much more of a broader community for people that are mentoring. Okay, I'm going to stop there. It's a lot of info.